السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته طلابنا. Today our lecture is on chapter 15. Chapter 15 deals with intonation. Of course, we have more than one unit or one chapter on intonation. If we have time, we will take another lecture on this subject. But today we shall deal with it in a simple and general way. Of course, in the previous chapters, we deal with the description of phonemes, right? The sounds, the phonemes, the kinds, the articulation of these phonemes, and this is within the scope of segmental phonology. تحت غطاء أو تحت علم segmental phonology. But for example, in the previous two or three ones, we dealt with stress, for example, and which has linguistic importance, of course, so that it is an aspect of the phonology of English and which is very important one. But it is not related to the segmental phonology. It is within something which is above the segmentals or the segments of the phonemes, I mean of the words. Therefore, it is within the scope of suprasegmental phonology. within stress, intonation هي من ضمن أي phonology أي kind من الphonology suprasegmental phonology. النيم الآخر, another name for the suprasegmental phonology is the prosodic phonology or prosody. An important part, we have said that, of the suprasegmental phonology is stress and intonation. So what is intonation? أريد أعرف what is intonation. No definition is completely satisfactory for this term, but as long as we want to define intonation, طالما احنا نريد نعرف intonation, is we must recognize that pitch of the voice plays the most important part. لازم ننتبه انه بالintonation البitch اللي هي علو او هبوط الصوت في الفويس مالتنا is very important one. Of course, in very unusual situations, we do speak with fixed and varying pitch. Okay, so it is unusual to use or to speak in fixed and varying pitch so that our voice will be monotonous, رتيب ممل. So we normally the pitch of our voice is continually changing, and one of the most important tasks in analyzing intonation is to listen to the speaker's pitch and recognize what it is doing, and this is of course not an easy thing to do. So the only things that should interest us are those which carry some linguistic information. So the aspects of the speaker's pitch are very important, where in the those that which carry some linguistic information. I mean, for example, let me give you an example. If a speaker, for example, tries to talk while he is riding on a horse, okay, so his or her pitch, of course, voice I mean, will make a lot of sudden rises and falls, right, as a result of the irregular movement on the horse, right? صوتنا احنا بنتكلم واحنا صاعدين, for example, a horse will have what? Will have rises and falls. According to what? Or because of what? Because of the riding on horse, irregular movement. الركوب الخيل for example والصعود والنزول في الحركة مالته يؤدي إلى تغيير في البitch of our voice. This is not our business. This is not our, let us say, interest. We are interested in what? In the pitch or the intonation that linguistically significant. نهتم بالناحية اللغوية. So an individual speaker does have control over his or her own pitch. يعني يكون سيطرة، يعني يكون له سيطرة على البitch مالته. May choose to speak with a higher than normal pitch, for example, and this is something which is linguistic significant, of course. Okay. So we have established that for pitch differences to be linguistically significant. This is number one. يجب أن يكون pitch differences بها فائدة لغوية. So it is a necessary condition that they should be under the speaker's control. فإذا لازم إنه هي نهتم بها. ليش؟ هم يكون عندها أنا عندي سيطرة في تغيير البيتش مالتي. For example, you will see that if I, for example, I'm asking a question, my pitch will be in different form في هيئة مختلفة when I'm, for example, answering. So question or asking is the way of asking is different from the way of what of answering. My pitch will be what will be different. So number one, I should have the control, let us say, on my pitch. This is one. There is another also necessary condition that the pitch, okay, difference must be perceptible. Perceptible means be heard, be noticed by the hearer or the listener. Also, this is important one. So this will lead us to the form and function in intonation. So to summarize what we have said, we want to know the answers to two questions. Number one, what can we observe when we study pitch variations or when we study intonation? شنو اللي يريد ينتبه له؟ Number two, what is the linguistic importance؟ وما هي الفائدة اللغوية من عندها؟ لما انتبه اشوف هاي البيتش مالتها صار عالي high for example. يعني what does this mean لغويا linguistically? So I should pay attention to two things. Number one, what is the form of intonation? Number two, what is the function of intonation? So this is very important question. You should know the form and the function of what of intonation. The form الهيئة الأشكال اللي يجي بيها والوظيفة اللي يؤديها الintonation. Okay. So we need a name for a continuous piece of speech beginning and ending with a clear pause. This will be called utterance. إذا لازم إحنا نلقى في التسمية إلى لما يكون عندي كلام مستمر يعني ونهايته pause يعني وقفة. فأسمي مثل هيجي هذا continuous piece of speech أسميه utterance. Okay, so in this chapter we will concentrate on what? On one syllable utterance. راح نركز على كلمات أو utterance connected speech or let us say continuous piece of speech but consists of only one syllable حتى يكون سهل for you to what? Easy for you to understand and comprehend. So let us take for example yes and no. فأغلب examples مالتنا راح تكون on what? On the two words اللي هما yes and no. We have three kinds of intonations or tones let us say. ثلاثة أنواع من الانتونيشن أو من التونز النغمات في أصواتنا. The first thing is to notice that we have a choice of saying these with pitch اللي هي pitch remaining at a constant level. أول نوع هي لما يكون عندي constant level يعني tone يعني مستوي متواصل ما بي لا ارتفاع التون ماتي أو البيتش ماتي ولا انخفاض. اوكي او قد يكون عندي مثلا النوع الثاني لما يكون عندي البيتش change to high for example level فاذا هذا راح يكون عندي rising tone بيجي حاله او في بعض الاحيان عندي المانر لما احكي مثلا في كلام يصير عندي falling tone. فاذا we have three kinds of what of pitch or intonation or tones. Number one the even one الايفن المستوية والثاني وحدة هي rising. Number three is the falling one. So let us notice or know or understand what is the difference with these or between these kinds. Of course, the word we use for the overall behavior of the pitch in this example is tone. فاحنا راح نغير يعني نتكلم عن التون. A one syllable word can be said with either a level قلنا tone or a moving tone. A level tone والmoving tone. A moving tone قلنا يا اما تكون rising يا اما تكون falling. For example, if you try saying yes or no with a level tone. Level tone أريد أقول yes or no. Yes, no, yes, no, yes, no. So here we may find that the result doesn't sound natural. The even one, it doesn't seem to be what natural. Indeed, the English speakers do not use level tones in their utterances يعني very frequently. ما يستخدمون هذا الإيفن المستوي الصوت المستوي من الانتونيشن إلا في حالات نادرة. Moving tones هي more common. moving tones يعني tones high or rising I mean or falling ones هي common tones المستخدمة في الكلام. If English speakers, for example, want to say yes or no in a definite final manner يعني أريد أنهي كلامي معك مثلا تسألني وأجاوبك definite final manner I will use the following tone. I will use what? The following tone. تعريفها راح نلقاه we will find it on page 121. 121 أول paragraph, very important one. خامس سطر تقريبا the fifth line. If English speakers want to say yes or no in a definite final manner, they will probably use a falling tone. What is the meaning of falling tone? التعريف مهم. One which descends يهبط from a higher to a lower pitch. أغير كلامي من higher إلى منو؟ إلى lower pitch. If they want to say yes, yes لمن أني أسأل مثلا for example yes, no, in a questioning manner إذا كان questioning manner so they will say it with a rising what tone. فإذا لما يكون عندي definite و final إجابة answer I will use what the following one. If I'm asking okay I will use what rising tone. A movement from lower pitch to what to a higher one. Notice that already in talking about different tones we use what there is some idea of the function that has been introduced. تلاحظون يعني أنا من قاعدة أشوف الأنواع من أحكي عن الأنواع رأسا أحكي عن الوظيفة الفانكشن اللي أديها. Clear? Yes. Of course the learner of English acquire English intonation in by what? By which, let us say, way? كيف? How? So I, or the learner of English, acquire the English intonation through listening to and talking to English speakers. This is يعني as simple as this. يا أما I listen to them or speak to them. Therefore, I will get used to their way of asking, for example, or using, let us say, tones, falling, rising, even, etc. Okay? Yeah. In 15.2, we have tone and tone languages. We have tone and tone languages. Of course, in the preceding section, we mentioned the three simple possibilities for the intonation, right? And we have take the utterance an example اللي هو yes and no. We have said we have there is level, fall and rise, right? So it will be necessary to use what? To use symbols to represent these tones. لازم استخدم رموز حتى تبين لي هذه التونز اللي هي الثلاثة قلنا يا اما even مستوية يا اما falling يا اما what rising one. فإذا you will see that there are marks هناك علامات on the bottom of page 121 أسفل الصفحة عندنا ثلاثة علامات marks used for the tones. The level هي كأنه hyphens تلاحظ hyphen yes hyphen one no sorry and falling قلنا لما يكون عندي definite final manner والrising لما يكون عندي questioning right yes of course not all the languages the change of the tone will change the meaning okay but there are languages and this is very important there are languages when I change my tone the meaning of the word will be what changed okay for example in English yes and no will not I mean when I say yes in an rising let us say tone or falling tone or even tone yes the meaning of yes is yes right and the meaning of no is no but there are languages for example the language of West Africa in Cornwall okay here no we find the meanings will be different if I change my tone okay for example we have the word with the meaning of ankle if I use it in for example high level okay or rising level but when I use it in the low level if I use the low level it will be with different meaning it will be it will have the meaning of greedy from ankle to greedy so very different right meanings between the two words so the tone is very important for these languages are called what are called tone languages they called what they are called tone languages that is to say in the tone the change of the tone will change the meaning of the words okay in 15.3 we have the complex tones and pitch height of course we introduce three simple tones okay here even will fall and rise however there are other more complex tones these are the simple tones we have complex tones the complex tones no different from that one that is quite frequently found when I use fall and rise tone at the same time. Fall and then rise tone, where the pitch descends and then rises again. Another complex tone النوع الثاني من الcomplex tone هي لما يكون much less frequently used هي rise fall in which the pitch follows the opposite movement okay so these are called what complex tones so the simple tones we have the rising the falling the even but the complex tones no when I have two movement in one let us say utterance we have falling rising or rising falling each speaker has his or her own normal pitch range any one of us we have pitch range you know even in our department for example we have professors or teachers which their or whose pitch range is very for example low right فيكون كلش صوتهم ناصي والبيتش مالتهم والتون ناصية بحيث شنو so that for example some students cannot hear them and others بالمقابل عندنا أساتذة we have teachers or people let us say in general whose pitch tone is very or are very what high for example so that every student will listen to them and hear them right so here we have each speaker has his or her own normal pitch range a top level which is the highest pitch normally used by the speaker and the bottom level that the speaker's pitch normally doesn't go below Okay, so in ordinary speech يعني بالكلام الطبيعي intonation tends to take place within the lower part of the speaker's pitch range, but in situations لما يكون انت عندك strong feelings, excited for example, you are for example nervous, angry, happy, okay, please, your pitch what will be different, of course. Your pitch, tone, or range, let us say, will be different. Yes. In 15.4, some functions of English tones. Here we will deal with the functions, الوظائف اللي يؤديها الانتونيشن أو التونز. ايش استخدمهم؟ شنو الوظائف اللي تأديها؟ طبعا we have mentioned some of the functions during our lecture today, but it's okay if we come across them again. We have here, for example, here we have fall, okay, the falling, number one, the falling intonation, for example, yes, no. This is the tone about which least needs to be said, which is usually regarded as more or less neutral. If someone is asked a question and replies yes or no, it will be understood that the question is now answered and there is nothing more to be said. It refers to or give the impression of finality. فإذا الفولينج خلوا بالكم إنه الفولينج تون هاي أول فانكشن. الفولينج تون شن تنطيني شنو الوظيفة مالتها؟ الفايناليتي. طبعا هذه موجودة on page 123. ثاني paragraph من 15.4 very important. This is the tone اللي هو if someone is asked this question and replies with falling tone, it will be understood that the question is now answered or there is nothing to be added more or to be said. Okay? In a variety of ways, this tone conveys an impression اللي هي rising. هسه نجي على ثاني kind من التونز اللي هو rising. بالrising هذا التone conveys impression that something more is to be followed or to follow. لما نقول yes, I mean as if I am asking. Okay, a typical occurrence in a dialogue between two speakers, whom we shall call, for example, A and B. For example, A wishing to attract B's attention, he will ask him, "Excuse me." Section or let us say person B, okay, will say yes. Yani, what is there? Okay, what do you want? So the B's reply perhaps equivalent راح يكون إلى what do you want, okay, by using what? By using the rising intonation or tone. So again falling راح ينطيني الفيلينج of finality, بينما الrising راح ينطيني the invitation, let us say, to continue, or the let us say some way of asking. Yes. We have the third kind اللي هو falling rising. Here the fall rise is used a lot in English on page 124. It is used by the English, okay, speakers and has some special functions, which is the limited agreement, okay, or the response with reservations. يعني أنت لما يكون تجاوب falling rising يعني I'm agree, for example, means I agree but not fully, for example. So limited agreement when I say استخدم falling rising something. Yes, okay, like this. Yes يعني معناها إيه أنا وياك لكن عندي تحفظ. So falling rising means what? Means limited agreement or response with reservation. Okay, It means that I'm not completely, I would not completely agree with you or what you are saying. Okay. بالنسبة للrising falling هسه نيجي على عكس الشيء. rising falling this is لما you want to convey strong feelings of approval or disapproval or surprise. okay ثلاثتهم يعني إذا كان yes فأنت strong feelings of approval. إذا no you are against the idea totally. okay so you will use what the rising falling um, what tone or pitch or intonation. The third kind is what the level. The level, this tone is certainly used in English, of course. The level قلنا المستوية, المونوتونس, المملة. But in a rather restricted context. طبعا تستخدم لكن الكونتكست مالتها كلش limited, restricted one. It is used to convey what شو وقت نستخدمها ليش حتى شو توصل to convey a feeling of saying something routine, uninteresting, boring one. okay so a teacher calling the names of the students from a register will often do so using a level tone on each name. For example, the teacher when asked to the students to take the attendance okay ياخذ حضور شو يستخدم أي tone an even one, a level one. okay so it is a tone that indicate a feeling of boring, of saying something routine, etc. so we notice that we have many meanings, we have different functions used by or indicated by the three kinds of the tones اللي هم قلنا يا اما falling يا اما rising يا اما even. عندي complex tone اللي هي يكون عندي falling rising or rising falling لما يكون عندي two movement بالبitch مالتي والديفينيشنز موجودة عندكم. فإذا الفانكشنز لهم أيضا إلها مختلفة. لما تكون عندي even يكون إلها معنى، لما تكون falling إلها معنى أو function وظيفة، and لما تكون rising one. okay we have here the last point in this chapter 15.5 the tones on other words. طبعا احنا كل أمثلتنا كانت عن اليس والنو لأن هذا الutterance simple one حتى يكون واضح بالنسبة لكم. So we can move now on other words to see either the single syllable words or words with more than one syllable. In the case of the polysyllabic words لما كلمة تتكون لي من أكثر من مقطع it is always the most strongly stressed syllable that receives the tone. على الأغلب لما يكون عندي كلمة بها أكثر من syllable فأي syllable stressed هو يكون شنو هو اللي ياخذ التون، هو ياخذ الانتونيشن أو rising let us say pitch of my utterance. okay طبعا هو وكأنه هي مساوية tone mark وكأنه مساوية إلى الستريس مارك. يعني وين ما أخلي الستريس هي وكأنه التون مارك موجودة عندي. okay of course for the definite feeling I use the following intonation, you know that. And for the suggest a question for example, no, I will use what the rising one. وعندي أمثلة منطيني إياها for example here stop or 80 or again or sure, really, tonight. This is for the rising intonation. Number two, when a speaker is giving a list of items, if I, for example, count things for me, for others, sorry, so they often use rising on each item until the last. For each item, I will use what the rising intonation. If I count or list something, for example, you can have it in red, blue, green, and black. okay black the last one I use what the falling one, the last which has the falling intonation. okay طبعا falling rising راح يكون عندي لما يكون I am hesitant, I'm uncertain about something راح استخدم falling rising. Okay. الفولينج rising also used instead of rising giving list. في بعض الأحيان أيضا تستخدم in if I'm يعني surprised or impressed, for example, sorry, I count certain list, I will use the falling rising one. بينما rising falling, no, when I'm surprised, when I'm impressed, for example, I will use the rising falling intonation. You notice that for each tone or kind of tone, there is a function for the intonation. So intonation is very important in our speech because it indicates, it conveys many messages. Okay, لأنه ينطيني كثير من المessages. Okay, thank you very much. This is the end of chapter 15. Again, I repeat, if we have time, we will take another chapter or unit in intonation. And if we do not have this chance or opportunity, this will be the last chapter for this course. Thank you very much and goodbye.